Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Autism Art Summit April 2022 with PlayStreet. My name is Mini Dwivedi Gopinathan. I'm the founder of PlayStreet, Bangalore, India. I'm an RDI consultant, OPT and a feeding therapist, an AEC program co-creator called the Play Talk program, and an Access Bars facilitator. PlayStreet is an organization that provides educational services to help the child with special needs become independent and live to their potential. We offer parent empowerment programs and integrated school programs and a variety of clinical services. As April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, we wanted to bring to you the pioneers in the field of autism to guide us all and spread more awareness and knowledge. Today is our first talk, and our super cool speaker for today is Miss Kamini Lakhani. She is my mentor for RDI, so we have a special connection. Kamini is a behavior specialist and an RDI consultant. He has been providing services in the field of autism spectrum disorders since almost 3 decades. He set up SAI, Support for Autistic Individuals, in 2004, which provided applied behavior analysis and verbal behavior services. SAI Connections was set up in 2011 to provide RDI, that is, Relationship Development Intervention-based services to families. Kamini is responsible for the US-based RDI professional training and supervision in India and Dubai. Being a mother of an adult on the spectrum, Kamini believes in empowering families to deal with autism. He is passionate about the cause of autism. Respect and dignity for people on the spectrum are the cornerstones of our practice. Today, we are going to talk about a new perspective to autism, the RDI model and dynamic intelligence, and how it prepares the family for autism adulthood. Welcome, Kamini.
Thank you so much, Minnie. Thank you.
Would you like to say a word to our viewers?
I just feel blessed and privileged to be the start point of this. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, Minnie. And it's always a pleasure to connect with PlayStreet because I remember, I think it was November 2018 that we had done a training in Bangalore. And I still remember those wonderful vibes that I received from PlayStreet. So a lot of gratitude to you all and thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamini. So I'll start with the questions. Today is World Autism Awareness Day, and we are starting the Autism Hour Month with your interview. On this special day, we send very important message to the globe about our most precious individuals diagnosed with autism who are very close to our heart. I would like to begin with a request from you to help us to understand the new perspective on autism.
Sure. So thank you for this question, Minnie. I think, way back when my son was diagnosed, when Mohit was diagnosed, he was 3 years old. And this was way back in 1992. In those days, what they told me when the diagnosis came in, first of all, I didn't understand what autism was. And the rates they quoted were 1 in 10,000 compared to what it is now, like 1 in 45, 1 in 55, 1 in 65. But in those days, it was 1 in 10,000. And I had no clue what it was. But what they suggested right at that time was speech therapy, occupational therapy, and special education. And I get a little perplexed when, I speak to new parents now, and those are the exact same recommendations that they're given even today. So I believe that, of course, every field of science has evolved. Why not our understanding of autism? It's so important to understand that, right? So I think the new perspective is one that we work on the core deficits of autism. That is really important. And by core deficits, I mean co-regulation, which is the interaction, with your child, your role, your child's role, the ability for each child on the spectrum to be able to regulate themselves, to be able to inhibit themselves. Then you have joint attention. How well are they observing not just the person who's with them, but even eventually observing their environment? And then personal agency, which is the sense of self. Who am I? What do I like to do? that self, the sense of self is so important. And then interpersonal responsibility, which is how do I interact with this person in front of me? What is my responsibility to keep this interaction going? Now, the beauty of the core deficits is that they're present in every individual on the spectrum. So earlier we used to have, we had this division between autism and then Asperger's, and we did away with all that. Now it's autism
EDD,
spectrum. Yeah,
EDDNOS, yeah.
yes. So now it all falls under this umbrella of autism spectrum disorders, and this is the commonality. you know in the old days, I think people may still be using high functioning, low functioning. It's something that I don't enjoy using at all, because every individual needs to be respected for who they are, and they all have their strengths. So,
Even I don't like this term high functioning, low functioning. The way I see it, if the child is a speaker, is
yeah,
labeled as high functioning, and if a child is a non-speaker, and automatically we start calling that child low functioning, which is
right.
so. I mean, for me, it's very. I don't know. I can't express this. A sad feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So instead, if we look at it from the viewpoint of what are the core deficits and how are they manifesting in each individual, we'll be much more helpful to that person, rather than categorizing them like this. So I totally believe that the core deficits should be what we should look at, and also the other point of always presuming competence. I speak a lot about this, and I think the people on the spectrum, the individuals, whether they're children, whether they're teenagers, whether they're adults, if they don't speak, like you said, Minnie, it's like they don't understand. And that's not true at all. Non speaking doesn't mean non understanding. Non speaking doesn't mean that my child cannot think,
Yes,
right? It's
absolutely. Yeah.
so that paradigm shift, that we got to change that. We've got to change that in the minds of parents, of specialists, because I feel that that would be then looking at an individual respectfully, always presuming, and it has repercussions. Because I remember, I had this mother once talking to me, and she said, my child, since 2 months, has been displaying all these behaviors. And I still remember that girl because she was so beautiful, just
Hmm.
6 years old. She had these ringlets and so adorable. And this kid was constantly jumping on the sofas in my office. So, I asked the mother, give me some background, tell me, what's going on. And she said, the teacher has warned us, the class teacher, that if her grades don't improve, they're going to keep her back in the same grade because
Hmm.
she's not doing well at all. And I was horrified. And I looked at this little girl and I said, by any chance, don't tell me if this is true, but was your child there when the teacher was talking about all this? And she said, yes, she was. So that means this little beautiful child was taking in all of this, processing all of it, just because she didn't have this output of speech,
Hmm.
right? She was like just talked to about in her own presence. Now, when you presume competence, we speak respectfully to the child, we speak like they actually get it, which they do, So I think presuming competence is a game changer.
And yeah, this whole new perspective is so respectful for our individuals compared to what it used to be. If you're a non-speaker, you don't understand, you can't think, you don't know anything, right?
Right.
And I've seen the adolescents kids are made to do baby puzzles.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
so what our children would have been going through, unimaginable.
Yes.
Kamini, I'll move to the next question. You are both a BCBA and an RDI consultant. Which approach is closer to your heart?
Okay. So yeah, I was a BCABA mini, right from 2000,
BCABA.
yeah, 2005, where I didn't renew up to 2017. So at 2017, I stopped. I didn't renew my certification. I believe that everything in life has a timing,
Yes.
and there is a time for everything. I have huge respect and gratitude to my ABA mentors. They've taught me so much, and it was what sustained me when I was, clutching at straws to look for something to help Mohit. And that's where my training began when I was in South Korea. So I have a huge, I owe a debt of gratitude to Dr. Vince Carbone, to Dr. Patrick McGreevy, to Siri Ming. These have been my teachers, very fine behavior analysts over the years, very wonderful individuals. Um, what I can share with you is my own story of my son and of others that I worked with using ABA.
Mm.
So obviously the emphasis was always on language, right? The different language operands and skills. And it gives you a good feeling because it's like you're ticking off boxes and saying, okay, today my child achieved this, or my child was able to mand for so many things in a day, or my child was, able to label, expressively label or tact for these many things, Uh, so all that was fine. Things were going fine. I think what I saw was acquisition of skills was happening. Acquisition of language uh, skills was also moving along. But I did not see meaningfulness.
Mm.
I did not see generalization. I used to have parents coming in and saying, the data sheets are wonderful. And I see all this. My child has so many words, but my child doesn't use these. And that used to hit me, and we used to have these generalization practices in place and everything. And yet I did not see a generalization of skills and also of language per se, and then after a few years, what I would see is the plateau coming in
Mm.
and then followed by a lot of aggression. Yeah,
Mm.
and then behavior plans would be implemented. I remember I had like so many behavior plans on for my students, multiple behavior plans at a time, all monitored, all properly checked and everything. And we were not able to support the kids. And this happened with Mohit. And I could see him like shutting down, right? This boy, I used to work with him 5 hours a day on discrete trials, sitting across a table, teaching him language. So I could see the frustration, the aggression, the shutdown happening. And there's a very beautiful story that I share, So he was 17 when I started RDI.
Mm.
And all this time, with a lot of agony, and I would say, I, I am a BCABA myself. I have this center running, which offers services to so many people, but I feel in my heart that something's missing. As a mother, I feel something's missing. So then I started researching, and a friend told me about RDI, and I just started reading about it. I started consulting for Mohit, and here is this 17-year-old tall guy, like, not wanting to connect with the world. His head would be down like that. And my first consultant was Joyce Albu, who flew down from the US to work with us because we didn't have RDI consultants at that point of time. I'm
Mm.
talking about 2006, 2007, that era. So she just came in with a ball and no word spoken, and she just started tossing the ball to Mo, not a single instruction. Okay. And this young man, from looking down, he started looking up, just to interact with her. And at that point, his eyelashes caught the sunlight, and I was sitting at the side and watching this. And I said, oh my gosh, my son has beautiful eyelashes. I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot about it, because I had for so long, I was used to seeing his head down like that. And that was the beginning. That got things moving. And, as we started building the foundations, I could see changes. And then that's where I decided that no, now I want to certify as an RDI consultant. And so that's where my journey began. So, like I said, that there's always a time and a place for everything. But many times I questioned, that what would have happened if RDI was in my life earlier? I wish that were true.
Yes.
So I think that answers your question about
Very much.
where I
Yes.
tilt towards maybe.
Yes. It answers it like 100%. So I will now let's continue our discussion on RDI. So why is RDI called the second chance for the children and families with autism? And what is the core idea of RDI?
Okay,
I'll repeat it. What is the core idea of RDI?
right. So parents are the key factors in RDI. The parents are the experts in RDI. Okay, it's not, we want parents to feel empowered because they are the guides to their children. End of the day, no matter where a child goes, they come home to their parents. And if parents are not equipped to deal with their child, then what's going to happen? Right? So this is the central point, that parents are the key. And then this parent-child relationship is so important. Now, you said the second chance. Like, why is it the second chance, right? So, due to the way the brain is wired, this interaction, this relationship with the parent doesn't take off. Not due to any fault of the parent. I feel parents are the most hardworking and conscientious. I mean, you can't get more power than from a mom on a mission.
That's true. Yeah.
So, like, it's no fault of the parent, certainly not the fault of the child, because it's the way the brain is wired. The children are not they're not manipulative, they're not badly behaved. It's just the way the brain is wired. So initially we may not recognize this, and time just goes by, and then things get worse and worse, and this gap gets getting worse, right? But when we start working on the RDI program, we this the parent training is a very important component, so that the parent slows down, understands what's happening, and they become effective guides to their child, as a result of which the child also gets drawn in. And they work on these foundations of development, which were as if covered up and lost. And then you start building on it, and you develop this beautiful relationship between the parent and the child. So I think that's the beauty of it. And that's the central premise of the RDI program.
I've seen that before RDI, we just don't know our children. After RDI, we get introduced to someone whom we have given birth,
Yes,
but we didn't knew them. Or we didn't know them, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So the second
beautiful put.
chance, the phrase,
Yeah,
is really like it. It really explains the whole concept of relationships and
right,
how it helps our children to become independent.
right.
So now with this, let us go to the next question. Compared to other therapies, RDI focuses on guided participation. What is guided participation? Uh, See, we all have a unique relationship with our children, and of course, we have bonds with our children as a parent.
Mm.
And why is guided participation still not established? Where do we lose it?
Right. So this is beautiful, Minnie, and I think guided participation is this back and forth relationship that we talked about, right? So this back and forth interaction that develops very naturally. So I remember, as part of my training, I would go and sit outside and watch children at playgrounds. I became passionate about like watching what happens in typical development, right? And I would see these wonderful moms, young moms, like interacting with their children, and the child responding back to them, and it wasn't about words. It was the whole communication package that was activated. And I would look at this mother and, all these moms that, I would watch, and I would say, they're so wonderful. And this is a miracle. To see this interaction is a miracle. And this mom doesn't even know that it's a miracle, because
Yes.
that's typical development, right? So it's expected that your children will have this guided relationship with you, where you kind of contribute something, they contribute something back, and this gets missing, right? So to learn why it goes missing in autism is when we look at typical development and we see this trajectory, and then we say, where does this start? It starts at a very young age. Few months, a mother will be playing peekaboo with her baby, right?
Yes.
When the child is very little, and there's so much joy and laughter. There are no words as such, but there is that emotion, and there is the feeling, and there is this back and forth interaction that happens, and the mother
Hmm.
changes. She starts by covering her face, and then she does it slightly differently. Then finally, she might bring a handkerchief and cover her face. And at that point, the child might get overwhelmed and starts crying. And the mother knows that she just has to slow down a bit and get the
Hmm.
child back, right? So it
Right.
develops at that age, and when they're still little. But with ASD, it doesn't take off. Again, nobody is doing this deliberately. It's just the way the brain is wired. But because of neuroplasticity, we
Mhm.
can always go back and work on those foundations, and we can build the guided participation relationship. That the back and forth relationship of trust that a parent and a child have, that emotionally loaded relationship, that can be built. It doesn't matter. Dr. Gutstein, in fact, says that, if a 57-year-old came to me and said, I need your services, would I say no? He says,
Yes.
no, I would say yes, because the brain can change at any age. And we are here to provide that support, right? So we can get back on the trajectory at any point of time as much as is possible. And the whole idea is the quality of life. I think that quality of life is so important. So this morning I saw a video of this little girl and the parents. They've been on the program now for a year, and her they just sent me these three beautiful videos. One was of her in the pool
Hmm.
enjoying herself. So 2 years of COVID, no one was stepping out. But here she was in the pool, and in the end of that 4-minute video, she was on her belly and trying to, actually have those strokes, use those strokes. It was amazing to watch the exploration, the curiosity. The next video I think was of her in a sweet shop. Now, this kid would create a ruckus, even trying
Hmm.
to jump off her dad's bike if she saw a sweet shop.
Hmm.
But he took her into that sweet shop and he told her, we're going to buy stuff, but you're not going to eat it here. You're going to go home and eat it. She was able to regulate herself. And we were all watching this video and we were like, oh my gosh, wow. And it was, we all were teared over because this dad said that, I had given up on my child's schooling. I thought she would have to be homeschooled, but now I have hope for her. So that's the re-establishment of the guided relationship.
Yeah. So I've noticed that our children are very good at learning stuff. They have like this. They remember all the numbers. They can read anything, and for example, maps. So one map they will see, 100 maps they will see. They will remember it.
Right.
So and but I don't see these capabilities in like in other children. So what is this difference between autism and regular or typical children? that about the rote memory development of our children is so high
Right,
compared
right.
to typical children. So, what is the reason behind it?
So I actually feel that our children are very gifted.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they have the way they observe, the way they take things in is it's phenomenal actually. They'll remember something and we wonder how they do it, and it's amazing to see, right? But having
Mm-hmm.
said that, that falls under the purview of static intelligence, and
Mm-hmm.
what we need in day to day life is dynamic intelligence,
Yes, yeah.
right? So that is like, how do we continually move with this ever changing stream of life, things that are constantly changing? How do we keep up with that? Right. So our focus is, yes, right. While, you have this, it's wonderful. But as a parent, I want to teach you how to navigate this constantly changing stream of life so that your life is easier, right? So that falls under dynamic intelligence, dealing with changes in life.
I have never seen a framework like that before RDI because, as you mentioned, moment a child is diagnosed and the recommendations are made is say OT or ST or SE. And of course, a child has to get that. I'm not
Yes,
denying. But I've seen the way the skills are given repetitively. Keep on doing it, keep on doing it. Okay, say 10 fruits. So my child knows 10 fruits, 10 colors,
mm,
10 numbers, right? And and then we and start assessing our child's ability on something, how much the child knows,
right,
how much
right,
is the vocabulary. And that is what, as you mentioned, is static memory and leads to static intelligence. And I have not seen anything before RDI, the whole concept of dynamic intelligence. So you have just mentioned dynamic intelligence. Would you like to just tell us a little bit more about dynamic intelligence? That hmm, how do we develop it in RDI?
right,
And yeah, so and also how does it help our children?
right.
You mentioned about quality of life, and really, how does it help our children?
Absolutely, Minnie. So, like you said, we start off by teaching them, name this, find this, what's that. They get it. It's not difficult to teach them those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's say you've taught a child the flavors of different ice creams, and the
Mm.
child can name, chocolate and vanilla and strawberry, and also knows that, okay, chocolate is his favorite. You take them shopping, and we've coached them and we said, okay, we're going to buy chocolate ice cream, and goes there, you ask for chocolate ice cream, and the ice cream vendor says, sorry, we're out of chocolate ice cream.
Mm.
What does the child do then? I've seen many children, many adults, teenagers actually having a meltdown. They're not knowing what to do because their preferred item is not available, right? And so the what is taught through, this is the static part which they learn, but why, how, the whole the other parts around it, and how to deal with situations which you can't anticipate will change. Life is constantly changing. You and I deal with changes constantly, right? So we know that, and I share this example often. Husband calls, says, I'm bringing people home for dinner, and
Yes.
you've not kind of prepared a meal for 5 people, but now there are going to be 5 people at your house having dinner with you. How do we manage? And they're arriving in half an hour. How do we manage? This is a dynamic situation, right? We learn, we know, okay, I might have some stuff in the freezer that I can use, or I can always call for food quickly. So and so restaurant delivers in 20 minutes,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
I have some potatoes that I can cook really quickly. Just examples. So the mind already goes in so many different directions about how can I solve this problem which I had not anticipated.
Yes, the key point here is something which we have not anticipated.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
and that's what happens every day in our lives. Not
Exactly.
yeah, every day, many times a day.
Right. And we
Yeah.
problem solve constantly because we're good problem solvers because our brains are wired for dynamic intelligence, right? Now, a person on the spectrum, this is where he or she will get stuck, right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, so then we start restricting. I can't go here. I can't go here. If this is not available, my child is going to behave badly. All those restrictions start coming in, right? But when we start working on dynamic intelligence by introducing just noticeable differences, by introducing challenge in their life in a very safe environment, you're actually building the brain for dynamic intelligence.
An edge model does it so
Yes,
beautifully, so well structured and well designed model is edge
absolutely.
model. And here I realize that in those situations, even if my child knows 10,000 words as vocabulary of, right, there's 10,000 words, it's not going to help him to deal
Exactly.
with the situation which is not anticipated.
Right. Right.
And that's what is the quality of life.
Yes, and so we
Yeah.
teach them, we train them bit by bit, one step at a time to take these challenges. And then you actually put them in a situation where things are dynamic, things are constantly changing, and there you see the result of it. So I have this one young man that I work with. I work with several adults now because
Mm-hmm.
they've all grown, on the program. It's such a delight
Yes.
to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
So Prasad he's 25, 26. And many years ago, I think about 15 years ago, his mom had shared this story and she had taken Pras to her parents' home, to spend a couple of days. And this boy at that age, he just refused to use the toilet, which was an Indian style toilet at his grandparents' home.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know what to do. It's like if he doesn't use the toilet, it's detrimental for him. They were in the same city, luckily. So she came back home that night because he wasn't able to take that situation, right? Um, Last month, Pras went out with his sister and brother in law. He accompanied them to Himachal Pradesh, and for the first time, they saw snow. I think it was the first time he actually played with snow. They stayed at a homestay,
Mm.
and experienced a totally different life. He had to eat at the time that was given, the food that was given, the bed that was there, the kind of toilet that was there. And they had a beautiful trip. Pras was able to travel without his dad. He went out with his sister and brother in law instead.
Well, this is the beauty of RDI,
Yes, it's so heartwarming,
right?
right?
Flexibility, the flexible thinking.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I move to the next question now. And this is a very interesting question, actually. I find it very interesting. Let me share with me if you find it interesting too.
Sure.
A lot of people, they ask me to refer to a book for understanding and learning RDI. Some ask me for activities. Okay, give me activities for co-regulation and I will do them. And I have actually come across videos where I've seen videos where people mean RDI means just going non-verbal. So they just stop talking and they tell me these are my RDI videos. What
Wow.
would you say about it?
Right. So I've seen it. And in fact, I've heard people asking this question, Minnie.
Mhm.
They come up and say, does RDI mean that I stop talking to my child?
Hmm.
And I was like, where have you got this from? Like, where is this coming from? So
Yes.
it's very interesting because what happens is initially when we're building the foundations of communication, right, we kind of slow down with the talking aspect of it, so that we can build this back and forth with facial expressions and gestures and the use of our body, body movements and all of that, which is so integral to development. Now, all this, if we look at the developmental trajectory, all this happens before words actually take off.
Yes. Hmm.
So when we're working with our kids, we kind of tend to initially not use too many words so that we can build the foundations, right? But building the foundation doesn't mean that you constantly stay there,
Yes.
right? You can slow down for some time, but then comes this beautiful principle of declarative communication, which is that I share my thought process with you. I share how I problem solve that,
Hmm.
and so we use words, but we use pauses, we use declarative communication, and that helps our children to actually think, right? And Dr. Gutstein also uses this phrase. He says, slow down to speed up. So initially, you may slow down because you want your child's attention to be on the foundations, your building foundations, right? But
Yeah.
once this is in place, then you can speed ahead,
True. True.
right?
Yeah. Here, I would like to add a point. What we just talked about guided participation. It's not about going non-verbal. It's
Yeah.
about bringing in that guided participation, what we are
Mhm.
trying to develop, right? And that has to be
Absolutely.
experienced. It can't come from a book.
Yeah. And it can't come from words, it can't come from us constantly instructing a child, right?
Yes, true.
If we
Yeah.
slow down and,
Hmm.
we're like, oh, the child looks at us and then says, oh, what's going on? What do I need to do? Right? So that's why we focus on that and then build this. That's a beautiful point, really, how
Okay.
to build GPR.
I would like to tell my audience that RDI is not about being non-verbal. It's just a beginning point. And we do talk. The whole idea of co-regulation is interaction, to have interaction.
Absolutely.
And definitely having an interaction without words and without other non-verbal communication is meaningless, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll move to the next question now. Please help our audience to understand that why co-regulation is the most important foundation of development.
Right. So I love this. I love this question, and of course, co-regulation. The child being regulated is I think it's the magic bullet, and this is it's about how my actions impact someone else. So the guide's actions and the actions of the apprentice, right? Both of them interact in a way that's uh, it's constantly changing little by little, and they have an impact on each other. It's not scripted at all, and this leads to an emotional regulation between the two. So I experienced this way back, and I didn't have words to express it. So I asked Dr. Gutstein one time, and I said, when I interact with Mohit, it could be a simple activity of ball play, and we played for about 10 minutes, and at the end of which I feel like I'm in a meditative state, and he says, yes, that's the beauty of co-regulation. It has an impact on both people, right? And if when I started reflecting on that, so a simple ball play activity, like you start by tossing the ball to each other,
Hmm.
and then once the child realizes what's going on, then you start introducing just noticeable differences. Now, these are not scripted. This cannot be scripted. This is in the moment that you say, okay, can I just challenge him just a little, him or her? And you start introducing those changes, and you're constantly observing each other. Your child is observing you, you are observing to see, is he or she on edge at any point? If they are, then you slow down. You build this back and forth between them. Then you might introduce a challenge. Once he's able to take this, then you say, okay, let's both of us throw a ball to each other at the same time, right? So now you're challenging, and all this while you both are monitoring each other. He's watching you, you're watching for any signs of distress so you can bring that distress down. And at the end of this beautiful interaction, you both feel so calm, right? So even if your child is dysregulated, you have the tools of slowing down to calm your child down, right? This is the beauty of co-regulation, which doesn't come from scripted actions or words. It's an internal mechanism that works beautifully, you know. So
So
we start off with co-regulation, like as you know, you've done it, Minnie. We worked on it, and you've applied it to your families, and it's that starting point which is just so effective,
I actually created a program only for co-regulation.
right?
So this is just it's a like short-term program so that we can see some results um, by applying the principles of co-regulation. And it
Right,
is easier for family to understand RDI then. And
right,
when we are able to achieve co-regulation, if we see that we are able to help the families and children much more in other areas too.
absolutely.
That's the reason I created a short-term program just for co-regulation.
That's wonderful.
So now I would like to move to the next question. It is not about RDI anymore. I would like to ask about your own experiences. So you are a mother of a child with autism. Please share us your journey with Mohit and what part did RDI play in that?
Right. So, like I said before, you know, he was diagnosed at age 3,
Mhm.
and I had no clue what autism was. You know, when they told me, I told the pediatrician, like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I read this article in the Reader's Digest, which was about autism. And that was my first experience of reading about autism. And my son is not like this at all. So how can you even say that he's autistic? And
Mhm.
so, you know, it was it that one the first year was a year of grief, I think. And you know, trying to come to terms with, now how do I help him, what do I do? We were living in South Korea at that time, and I went back. He was diagnosed in Mumbai, went back to South Korea, and there, because of the US Army base there, they would send me one SLP once a week and a special educator once a week. And these people would work with more. And I just felt that, you know, I'm not doing enough. There's definitely things that are missing. All I knew was something's missing. That was playing on my mind. And so then I decided to travel to the US. And you know, by this time I had Tanya, my daughter, who was just a few months old. She was just 5 months old when Mo was diagnosed. And
Mhm.
so it was like, you know, being a young mom with 2 kids, not knowing what to do with this kid on the spectrum. And so I decided to, you know, let me go and study, let me understand what this is about. So my first training was at the Lovas Clinic in Los Angeles. And there I was trained to work with discrete trial. And those were the days of those VHS tapes and stuff. I'm talking about pre-internet, you know.
Yes.
So very early on, and where I had to work with Mo and send tapes of me working with him to my supervisor at UCLA, and then they would give me feedback. And that's how I worked, and I would spend 4 or 5 hours a day besides his school school hours. He was only 4 years old, and so just started going to, you know, pre-KG nursery, or you know, and in those days. And so it was very difficult, but I think in that difficulty I learned a lot. And so then I moved to Dubai, started, you know, working with Mohit intensively. That those were the verbal behavior days. So in those days there were people flying into Dubai to teach about verbal behavior. And so I learned a lot about that there, and then soon moved to India, started you know, a center there, started SAI, and started working with many families, you know, to provide ABA services. And we had a wait list of people wanting to come in for a good quality ABA program. So I did that for a few years. But then, you know, I was always watching Mohit and seeing what's going on with him. And this was what I talked about earlier at age 17, when I was like, this is getting worse, and I don't know now what to do. and that's when I reached out and got help with RDI. So it was like, I think, 13 years of being on the ABA program, and then got on to RDI, saw the changes there, and said, no, this needs to come to India. you know this needs to people need to be aware of what RDI is and the impact it can have. So if a 17-year-old young man can benefit so much, what about kids who start off when they're 3 or 4 years old? What would be the impact on them, right? So this was this whole process of bringing like providing the service to others, to letting them know that that's not the only way. There are other ways you can do this, and let's become empowered mothers. Let's do this for our kids. It's about, for me, it's like, when a mother stands up and says that I'm going to do this, it is absolutely amazing. I work with a family in Calcutta, and the mother can barely speak. When she started the program, she could barely speak a few words of English, but of course you have the language of the heart, and we have our gestures and all that, so we could understand. And then within a few months, I could see that now she started speaking. She's coming up with sentences and stuff. And she said, no, I joined English classes. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at this mom standing up for herself.
Yes.
It's life changing for the entire family. And that's my aim, to let's take this everywhere. Let's take it all over. And for that reason, Minia, we're starting off a new online platform
Mhm.
which will be accessible to parents so that they can learn these in a digitalized online way of how to actually work with their children.
Yes.
We'll be accessible to many more people, and that's my aim: empowered families. And that's what I believe RDI does. And today I thank Mohit so profusely. It's because of him, and it's not been an easy journey, but it's because of him that as a mother, that I want to reach out to others and support them fully.
So, to my audience who do not know about Mohit, I want to tell that Mohit is an artist whose arts are getting converted to textiles, and fashion products are made out of it. He has exhibitions done, and he's known as one of the greatest artists in India. So this is for the audience who do not know about Mohit. So Kamini, would you like to tell a little bit about Mohit, about his paintings?
Sure, sure. So this also is directly related to RDI.
Mhm.
And, when I first started the program, I still remember Joyce telling me that, he just imitates everything you do. And that
Mhm.
imitation had become like with thoughtless. So for example, if I would be sitting near him, and sometimes you do this, like, and I would look up and I would see him do the same, and I would be,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, this is like, he's just begun to imitate everything because that was expected of him, right? So she actually said, let's set up an activity where he has to do something which uh, which is not imitated. So I set up this, these backs of greeting cards that I had, plain paper, and I put a barrier there, and I said, here is your set of colors and here is mine, and I'm going to paint mine, you paint yours, and let's see what you do, and you can't look at what I'm doing. Okay, so the imitator aspect was out. So we got engrossed in our painting, and then within a few minutes, I turned to look at what he's doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. This is amazing. And I've retained all of those paintings, Mini. Those early paintings, early days when he was like 17, 18 years old when he started. And then I realized, no, this is a talent that needs to be furthered. And so it started from the back of old greeting cards to huge canvases, 6 feet by 6 feet canvases that he has done, and I'm in awe. Like, I'm in awe of him. I'm in awe of all our children, because I believe that there's so much potential there to be tapped. And again, thanks to RDI that this happened.
Yes. Mm, I would like to ask for your guidance on how to prepare the child's transition to adolescence and then to adulthood.
Thank you, Minnie. I think that's such an important question. I feel, and you mentioned something in the beginning of the presentation where you said parents continue to do kiddie stuff and way beyond the age that they should be doing this. And it comes from a place of, no, I can teach my child, I can teach my child this, it comes from that place of my child knows this. So I think we continue it for such a long time, and seriously, we should let those things go. The stuff that is not appropriate, the kiddie stuff, we should take that out. The focus, of course, ADLs should be independent, right? Skills of daily living. Like, there's no use if a child can speak so much if he or she is not potty trained, right? Because that's what we want at a young age. Let's get all of this in place, because as they get older, not only is it difficult for the parents to train, but it's also very disrespectful to the child, right? So, one of my families told me this. She was big on teaching words and stuff. And, she, because her kid wouldn't eat well, she would start feeding him. So, she started getting looks from people like, what are you doing feeding this boy who looks, pretty much older now? And she said, then I started feeling embarrassed. And I told her, please stop, let him eat on his own. Let's focus on what is important. Take a bird's eye view of life and help our children. I think with puberty also comes a lot of emotional dysregulation. Let's prepare for that in advance, with co-regulation activities. That really helps children a lot. So definitely we can prepare for this. And functional education, use of money. How do you use money? What is required, what is really required in day-to-day life? Instead of going through elaborate lesson plans, if you look at life and you say, okay, this is what is required, let me teach this. Yeah. And if a child is non-vocal, let's give them communicative devices. A lot of parents ask that, if I give communication devices to my child will never speak. On the contrary, research shows us, and this, Minnie, this is your specialty, this is
Yes.
your field. So that people who use hands for sign language or who use communicative devices are more likely to actually speak. So, let's break all these barriers. Let's make life easier for for our children. Let's teach them to live independently and also interdependently.
Yes, very important point. Independent and interdependent. So now let's talk a little bit about your own personal stuff. Your Twitter handle is Calm Kamini. I love your handle. So please share your journey from getting a diagnosis for a child to a person who personifies grace and calmness. How did you learn to manage your anxiety so well?
Thank you for that, Minnie. Thank you so much. Um, it's not been an easy journey. It's been a journey of ups and downs, of a lot of hard work, and you know, uh, really being there to support more. And it wasn't easy at all. So I think when you go through a lot of difficulties in life, then you kind of learn to kind of say, okay, now it's not going to affect me, right?
Yes.
So it's through the struggles, through the pain of life, and through going through these ups and downs that you kind of find that strength within. And I have deep gratitude, Min, to Mohit, to all my students, because they've taught me about life. It's not that any of us is teaching them, but I think we're privileged in that sense that they've come into our lives and we've changed as people because of them. It's only through the darkness that you will be able to seek light, right? So I attribute this change to Mohit, to my students, and also to the my Buddhist practice, which is the practice of Nichiren Buddhism, that helps me stay grounded, that helps me navigate through the most difficult parts of life. So deep gratitude.
So we are reaching towards the end of our conversation, and I would like to ask the last question. What role does self-care plays for parents of individuals with autism? How is self-care connected to conscious parenting?
I think it is the by far the most important,
Mhm.
because unless we take care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. So in the airplanes, it says put on your oxygen mask first in case of any emergency. That's true, because if we don't take care of ourselves, how are we going to take care of our children, right? We need to take good care of ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually. In the RDI program, we check this with parents all the time. We ask them, what do you do for your self care? What is your me time? That me time is essential, right? The us time, which is the time, the time with spouses, I think that is so essential. I think sometimes we all need that child-free time and space so that we can connect with each other, and so we support the family as a whole. So it's absolutely important to build family time, time with other siblings also, with our other children, who
Mhm.
I think they're so precious. And because we get so focused on just helping our kids on the spectrum, that without knowing, we're not fully present for our other kids. So I learned the hard way about that. And so now I make sure that all my families work with have sibling time as well, and they're giving individualized time to the other kids in the family as well. So I think this me time, family time, we time is also important. Most of all, to take care of ourselves. It's the cornerstone. Without this, we cannot take care of our kids.
Take care of your health also. Go for a walk, 10-15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's very important. Don't lose your health, because if you are not healthy, how will you take care of your children and family? That's very important. And do one thing what you like to do, whatever it is, going for a movie once a month or
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So Kamini, with this, we have come to the end. And on behalf of PlayStreet team, I would like to thank you for your valuable time and sharing your knowledge with us. I hope that all the viewers are really able to understand how important is guided participation and challenging our children's thinking and problem solving to help them to navigate to decode the dynamic and a complex world by feeling competent. In a very simple way, Kamini helped us to understand that intrinsic motivation develops when a child feels competent mentally, but not just by challenging his skills and by giving him continuous instructions. So, hi, I hope we start making that change from today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you so much, Minnie. Thank you.